Hello, this is Dr. Alicia. I pray that you are well on today. This is the day the Lord hath made, so let us rejoice and be glad in it. So I am trying a new format for this particular video, so let me know how you feel about it. You might not have any thoughts, but just leave a comment in the comment section. So in this month of new beginnings, the 8th month of the year, I wanted to talk about how we should anticipate that God will show us things and allow us to experience things in very new ways. As I went out to lunch on today after church, I met up with a graduate student. I don't actually know the young lady's name, but she knew who I was. And she began a conversation with me and introduced me to her mom. And you know, all those things people do when they see maybe a professor from school or something. So she was telling me that this summer, for her, she actually went to China. I said, oh, really? And so I didn't know she was a graduate student. I know I had seen her around. I thought she was just a staffer on campus, but she was telling me that she was asked if she wanted to go to China. And she said, I went. She said, I had never been on a plane before. I said, you've never been on an airplane before? She says, I've never been on an airplane before. I said, wow. And I said, you went all the way to China? She said, yes, I went all the way to China. And so as she was telling me the story of having the opportunity to go to China, to experience the culture, the food, to take the time to just be immersed in the culture and all that that experience had to offer, I began to think about how in the days to come, God is going to start taking steps out of some of our processes. And so normally, especially for those of us in the West, if we're going to fly for the very first time, it may not be a trip out of the country. For others, that might be their first experience on an airplane. But for some of us, we've flown to New York or we've been to Florida. We've been on vacation. We've had another trip. I took my first flight on an airplane when I was 16 years old and I was in high school. And my English teacher took members of the speech and debate team to Harvard University. So I went from Charleston to Atlanta to Boston. So I remember that trip very vividly, of this being my very first time flying, not realizing that in itself it was an experience, because there are many people, they've never flown even as adults, but here I was as a 16-year-old having that experience for the very first time. And so normally, you kind of build your flight credit up, not just in points, but you build your desirability of flying, or if there's some uneasiness, you kind of work your way up, and then you take like a flight that's almost 20 hours plus. And so I was excited when she told me that, because I heard in my spirit, God is going to take some steps out of things. And there are so many of us, we are wanting to do things. We feel that we're called to do things, and we are believing that the steps are going to come. Step 1, step 2, step 3. That like, I'm going to fly to Florida, then I'm going to be able to go to New York, then I might go to the West Coast, then I'll be able to go on an international trip. And just that opportunity for that young woman has said that sometimes God just takes what you think has to be your preparatory stage. God might take that out of how you're going to get from point A to point B. And so you're thinking you have to do point A, B, C, D, E, F, G to get to point F. But God says, I have a way that can get you from point A to point F in the blink of an eye. And so sometimes we try to remove steps, but then that's where we have problems, when we try to remove steps. So I'm not talking about you removing the steps from the process. I'm talking about God removing the steps from the process. And I've seen it even in my own life, where God puts me in a position that I didn't have the other steps everybody else needed to have, but God exalted me in God's time. Not in my time, but in God's time. And of course, this doesn't work in every scenario, because I believe, like with anything, you need to prepare, and you need to be properly prepared, be properly trained, be properly positioned sometimes to go from one place to another place. But I believe that we are in a season where God is going to shake up the process. And some of the processes are man-made processes. And so because of that, God is going to create a process where only you and God can make sense of it. And other people are going to be looking around and wonder, well, how did they do that? How did they get there? How did they get that opportunity? Well, they didn't go through all of these steps that have been written out, that are in the bylaws, that have been law. How did they get there? And it's because God is saying, you want to go to China? Do you want to go to China? And so she could have easily said, no, I've never flown before. And because I've never flown before, I'm not open to the opportunity. She could have even said, well, no, I think I want to do some other smaller trips, and then I'll be prepared to go someplace like China. She said, when they called me, I said yes. And so I know that there might be some apprehension, because you might get the call to do something you've never done before. You might get the call to go someplace you've never been before. You might get the call to have an experience that no one even thought you are worthy of. But when an opportunity presents itself, and after you have prayed and after you have discerned that it is a good work and it's a good thing, then you say, yes, sign me up. I'm on my way. And so my prayer is on today. You have been blessed by this word. Again, my name is Dr. Alicia. I'm a marketplace ministry consultant, a Gullah Geechee girl, and all things fabulous. But normally I'm a college professor. I do some coaching, consulting, and as I come on with my videos are just really to be and provide a ministry of joy, a ministry of encouragement to those who just need a word of instruction, who need a word of motivation on your daily walk, because I believe that God speaks to us in so many different ways. But when we are so distracted and we are so frazzled, we can't hear how God is speaking through us, not only through our life events, but through the life events of others. And so as I navigate the world, I listen, and then I look, and then I live. And so my prayer for you today is that as you are on this journey called life, that you would listen, and as always, you would continue to look and to live. Thank you, and I look forward to chatting with you soon. Again, this is Dr. Alicia. You can hit me up at www.dralicia.com. Take care and have an amazing evening.